I don't want to waste your time, so there won't be an intro. I would love to show you the stats right away, but first I need to resolve the asterisk in the title. It does say lifetime stats, but that was actually clickbait. Yeah, I know. The problem is that I got the data from CGG and they only started to record stats at the 2018 Invitational, so my data doesn't include any games beyond that point. Also, the data only includes Ubisoft leagues and tournaments, so it does include every online Pro League game, every game in the Pro League finals, and every game played in Majors Invitationals, but it does not include the qualifiers for said Majors Invitationals or national leagues like USN. But most importantly, it also does not include the various LAN minors like DreamHacks, Allied Esports or OGA. And once again, I only used EU, NA and LATAM data. With that out of the way, let's jump right into the juicy part. The most important stat in Pro League is the CGG player rating. It basically combines all the interesting stats like KD, KPR, opening kills, and merges them into one handy number. So let's go. Spots 10 to 6 on the list of best lifetime CGG rating go to Waka, Geo, Hyper, Astro, and Aces. All of these are of course phenomenal players. Waka was the heart of Norarango, Geo, mainstay of NA Pro League finalists since the beginning of time, Hyper, the man who got DZ out of consistently placing third into placing first, Astro, the only player on this list that has been to every single Pro League final for the past 2 years, and Aces, who is the driving force behind the success of Giants in Europe. So these are spots 10 to 6. Number 5 goes to NIP's Muzi with a rating of 1.21, which is 0.04 better than Aces rating, so that's a pretty huge jump. However, the vast majority of these games are online LATAM Pro League games, and the one LAN tournament he played in didn't go that well for him. But we're going to look at LAN only performance later on in the video. Coming up next, we have two of the all-time great players in Pengu and Kanto for spots 4 and 3. These two, and especially their consistency, is the number one reason why G2 won basically everything in 2018. It's fair to say that they, and G2 in general, have cooled off, but since these are lifetime stats, they still very much deserve to be this high up in the leaderboards. Number 2 goes to a player that is quite similar to Muzi, only that he absolutely smashed the one LAN event that he was present in so far. I'm talking about Navi's Citizen, who basically hard carried Navi all the way from Challenger League in Season 9 to winning Pro League in Season 10. Obviously, still kind of unproven, seeing that Pengu and Kanto have played 5 times as many rounds as he did, but for the time being, these are incredible stats. If neither Pengu nor Kanto have the number 1 spot, there's really only one player left that deserves it, namely Nesk from Team Liquid. Honestly, just look at the stats. 1.26 rating and being positive 241, even though Pengu and Kanto played 250 rounds more than him. Especially if you look at this leaderboard with an asterisk next to Citizen's name because of the consistency issue, Nesk is miles above the rest in terms of rating, and it's honestly a shame that Liquid didn't really make deep runs in tournaments this year. Now, you might say that Nesk's stats are inflated because he hasn't played that many rounds in international tournaments, which is true, as you can see here. But let's look at the top 10 ratings for LAN tournaments only. Nesk is actually performing way better in international tournaments than he does online, which is honestly crazy to me. Looking at the rest of the LAN only top 10, we still have Pengu and Kanto, obviously. But now, we also have some of the young players that really made their breakthrough in 2019. Vert, Hyper, Virtue, Dan and Palu all had a very successful year, at least in terms of individual performance, although Hyper and Dan are probably also happy with their team's performance. For the sake of completeness, let's also look at the top 10 online-only CGG ratings. Obviously, very similar list to the two before, but we actually have a new number 1, Lukit from Team 1. If I didn't curate this list a bit, he also would have been first place in the overall ranking, but he only played 152 rounds, all of which were online. So what I did to try to eliminate outliers was to limit appearances on the overall leaderboard to players who had more than 200 rounds played. And the same with LAN only or online only, where you need at least 100 rounds played. And that's why you can find Look It here on the online leaderboard, but not on the overall leaderboard. Okay, that does it for looking at player ratings. The next most interesting stat is probably KD, but since KD also has the biggest weight in the formula behind the player rating, things aren't going to change very drastically. Nevertheless, here we go. Overall, we have pretty much exactly the same players present again, apart from Walker, who went out for Bibu. Most impressive on this list are probably again Kanto, Nesk and Pengu. Having such a high KD over 2 years and 1,000 rounds is really impressive. I mean, chances are that their Pro League KDs are higher than your ranked KD. And they're not just onliners either. Pengu has the best LAN KD of every single player in the game. Looking at this leaderboard, we can also see something really interesting about 2 of my former teammates. Both Vert and Slash are in the top 10 KD-wise on LAN, while being placed 23 and 56 if we only look at online performance. So it looks like these 2 really power up on LAN. So I think that does it for the bigger picture, but there are a few more detailed stats that are really interesting to explore. First, let's talk about entry fragging, where we have an unusual appearance. Obviously, Nesk is number 1 again, because why not also be a great entry fragger, but he's not miles above the rest, at least in terms of the percentage of his opening duels won. Nesk, Mav and Bullet all win about 64% of their opening gunfights. But wait a minute, Nesk makes sense, entry fragging for Liquid, Bullet makes sense, entry fragging for MIBR, but what is Mav doing up there? To be fair, I haven't seen a lot of FaZe games lately, but I remember Mav being more of a support player. Well, apparently he can do it all. Also, kind of interesting how the top 3 of the overall leaderboards are taken by 3 Brazilians, while for LAN only, the top 6 spots are taken by NA players. Don't think there's any meaningful message hidden here though, so let's jump to the next stat. And that means jumping back to Nesk. Maybe you've seen it already, but Nesk is actually the only player who averages more than 1 kill per round. And that might not sound impressive, but in my opinion, it's actually Nesk's most impressive stat. 1 kill every round for 800 rounds is just crazy. And look at where the rest are at. Sure, we got Citizen at 0.98, but as I said, he's unproven. But the next players on the list are Walker, Kanto, Ace and Hyper, all of which are a whole 0.1 kills per round behind Nesk. So him being first isn't even close. Now we have extensively talked about the star players of the teams, basically all of which were fraggers. But luckily, SeedGG also tracks some stats that let support players shine, namely SRV, which shows the percentage of rounds you survived, and KOST, which shows the percentage of rounds in which a player got a kill, planted or defused a bomb, survived, or was traded after dying. It's basically a measure for how much impact you have on any given round. As expected, the KOST top 10 is mostly taken by flex or support players, but of course Nesk finds himself in that list too. We can also see the unsung heroes of Team Empire here, with Cypher and Shepard on rank 3 and 4. But the crown of flex players definitely goes to Pengu, especially if we combine this with the fact that he also has the best KD out of all these players. Another thing that is often brought up when talking about Pengu is his ability to clutch rounds, and SeedGG also records that, so take a look. And it's true, Pengu has won the most 1vx situations in the past 2 years. And sure, he has played the most rounds on this list, but he's also up by 8 clutches compared to the players who have just as many rounds. But Pengu is actually not the most clutch player on LAN. That title goes to Shepard and Mav, both with 13 1vx1. And looking at these stats, I also have to highlight Bosco. As you can see, he has played considerably less rounds than all the other players here, but he is right up there in terms of clutches. And on LAN, he obviously is the most clutch player if you account for the difference in rounds. In general, he is another one of those players that really power up on LAN. His rating goes up by 0.11, his KD goes up by 0.2, and he also improves in all the other categories. Alright, that basically covered everything I wanted to talk about. So, who are the players that impressed the most? For me, that's gotta be Nesk and Pengu. For pretty much every category that I featured, both of them were in the top 10 and one of them took the first spot. In terms of lifetime stats, there's really no way around saying that Pengu and Nesk are the best players in Rainbow Six. But both of them had a disappointing year in 2019, so I also want to showcase the players with the most potential in the future. And that's gotta be Citizen from Na'Vi and Lukid from Team 1. If Citizen can consistently perform at this level, and if Lukid can show his performance on the international stage, we might just be looking at the next Nesk and Pengu here. And lastly, I want to focus on two NA talents that have been proving themselves this year, Hyper and Vert. Both of their teams, but especially Vert's, struggled on LANs for the majority of the year, yet that didn't keep them from posting these impressive stats, especially on LAN. So for the next year, all of these players deserve some special attention to see just where their careers are going. Alright, that's it for the video. I hope that you enjoyed this look at player stats just as much as I did. But honestly, I shouldn't be the one who does these videos. As I said before, I got all of the stats from SiegeGG, so really, they should be the ones putting out content like this. With all the stats they have, they are sitting on a literal gold mine, but sadly, they're not using it to its fullest potential. So if this video made you curious about the stats of your favorite pro, don't ask me about it. Instead, message SiegeGG on Twitter so they see just how much demand there is for a stats dashboard like this. That way, all of us profit. Thanks for watching.